You're doing something besides waiting for me, can I start?
Yeah, start.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
All right, I called to order the regular meeting of the Vermont Water and Sanitation Board on July 8th at 6:33. Late because of me, thank you all for waiting. Start with a roll call, I am Karen Morgan, present.
Nick Wickman, present. Art Martinez, present. Roger Wendell, present.
Philip Hardinger. Present.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Before we get started tonight, I'm going to run the meeting a little bit differently because of difficulties we had in the past. So I would like to have everybody who would like to speak raise hands, and we'll go around once and be a little bit more formal, and hopefully that will cut down on some of the interjections and arguments and whatnot. So if you have questions, again, during discussion, we will do that. But we'll try and be a little bit more formal, so please wait to be acknowledged to speak, and hopefully I'll remember.
As long as we're acknowledged. Oh.
Are there any approvals, changes to the agenda? See any? Then we will move to public comment. Public comment is 5 minutes per person. I see, would we have anybody in the room like to speak? No? Is there anybody online like to speak? Please raise your hand. I don't see anybody. So we will close the public comment. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, no public comment tonight. Moving on to financial matters. Do we have a report or motion to approve? Oh, I'm sorry, I see a hand up. Where did we have difficulty? The phone number ending in 25129. 514, I can't read from here.
Hi, it's Ludmilla. I am on my phone because my computer is running a little slow. I just want to say hi, and that's about it. And let's just do a little bit etiquette tonight on board meetings. Let's be kind. And if you don't know how to act at a board meeting, why don't you look at the city council? You take turns. That's it. And then I'd like to know about the ravine. I saw something on Lakewood's website, and also there was something else, the ravine, and I think that was it. That's it. Take care, guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you. It's like a normal meeting now, okay. All right, so we're back to financial matters. Treasurer like to say anything? Otherwise, we'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move to approve the daily monthly operating expenses and the unaudited financial and investment report.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Wendell. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Director.
Just a quick note for the record, Bill is not signatory to the checks yet because he's working through the bank and the district on that particular process. I didn't get a chance, I wasn't aware of this, I didn't get a chance to go over the financials like I usually do, but I've taken over his duties this meeting only for signing off on the checks, and I've got a couple of questions, a couple of quick comments. One, a compliment to the district on the American Red Cross training that the employees receive annually. I think that's a very good idea, and it was only a couple $1,000s to get everybody trained and up to speed. I think that's important for all the work we do on the street. And then, let's see, I had another question here, another comment. Oh, kind of an open-ended question. Maybe we could discuss this later. But Centennial Consulting does our note taking, and it looks to me like the amount they charge us each month varies considerably by a couple $100 depending. I wasn't aware that's the arrangement we had with him. I was under the impression it was a fixed fee, but apparently not. It must be based on how much work they have to put into deciphering what I've said.
Well, and the length of the meeting
Yeah.
varies.
Okay,
It's a fixed hourly rate.
fixed hourly rate.
It will depend on the length of the meeting.
Okay. And then just one question, Wagner Morgan Strategies,
Yes, it's the lobbyists,
it's the what?
our lobbyists.
Oh, the law, excuse me, I should have known that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's all I have for discussion. Everything as far as signing the checks looks customary and straightforward.
very good, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous approval, thank you. You want to do the report?
Well, we went a couple of months with no water main breaks, and that has changed. June, we had 3 main breaks, all due to corrosion. Very year of installation ranging from 1960 to 1980. So it's a lot has to do with the quality of the installation, properties of the soil, if they're highly corrosive or not. And we've discovered in these areas, there is corrosion. And with through elements, the asset management program, we're able to notate that for, as we plan for capital projects.
How close was these particular sections of pipe to being addressed about dirt? Were they, how close on the schedule would you guess?
I would say that the one from 1960 is probably the
Coming up.
closest.
Okay.
What street was that on? 1080 South Van Gordon. So Van Gordon.
So we may have just missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do what we can.
That was gonna be one that was on next year's, but due to Lakewood paving, it'll probably be 5 years out after that.
And that's the difficult juggle we have nowadays, that we know where they're gonna go, and in order to be efficient with money, we're planning around their drip cutting regulations that they have, so if it's like 0 to 5 years, they don't want you to cut it all, but obviously as we need to replace something, then that's what we need to do, it will just cost a lot more in restoration. So being able to have that data from them, we're gonna save a pretty significant amount of money on the asphalt. Replacement part.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, and then just ongoing maintenance, guys are out there every day, operating, flushing fire hydrants, exercising valves, cleaning sewer. Staying on top of everything. Any other questions on that?
you look at me when you ask that.
I kind of scanned the room. Development review, so we did get our first technical memo from Olson, our model engineers, on the 12364 West Alameda proposed development, the one behind the Starbucks and by Natural Grocers. Currently, they are going to exceed the 0.70 over D on the one segment of line over by Admiral Park. It was about how long is it? 48 feet, something like that. 60 feet, for a really short section of 24-inch PVC that will be at 0.71 D over D. So it started out okay. Development's going to push it over. So as of right now, that is the seating capacity. We delivered that to the developer, and we have yet to schedule a meeting with them and have a discussion on it, but let's. Yes, sir.
So what do you expect to have from the outcome with this developer, meeting?
Just to lay out the district's position on the technical memo that came from the modeling engineers. And if they wanted to proceed with the development, they would have to take care of that issue. It's not a high priority for the district. Right now, we're replacing aging infrastructure. We're not upsizing, a line for.
So when you say, if it's gonna require, right now the modeling says we're exceeding capacity.
If this one would,
If
excuse
this
me,
goes through,
if this one were to go in, it would push over our district. Maximum of 0.7 DOE.
and where would you like to see that at a normal running rate, at what percentage?
Ideally, it's 0.5 is,
Half,
yeah, about half, but.
and it is a current, what size pipe?
24 inch.
So you'd have to double that size of that pipe?
Not necessarily, that would have to go through design, typically. One pipe's size upgrade is enough to
Cut it by half.
probably. Sufficient
Probably.
capacity.
Did you do analysis before you do that?
Yeah,
And that would be their cost?
yes,
This is a pipe almost a half mile away from where the location of this improvement is going on.
correct.
But again, we have to take it into consideration, any kind of changes we go in the system. And this will take, okay, thank you.
Yep, everywhere from their point of entry to the exit point.
Yeah,
At the metro metering station would be affected by. The proposed, or the increased demand on the system, so that these modeling exercises are
yeah,
very valid.
I kind of like the improvement that's going to happen to that shopping center, which is never considered because nobody talks about it, because that shopping center where that bank was just kind of, there's hardly anybody in there, and anyways, it's a great improvement to that, and they still want to do it. I'm just real thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, well, we haven't had that conversation with them yet, but they may or may not elect to proceed, but. You know, we'll find that out once we meet up. Yes,
So
sir.
do you have an estimated idea of what the costs would be that they would have to incur?
Based on recent engineering costs, construction costs. You know, we use about a $350 per foot number to estimate.
And how many feet?
Um,
Under 100 feet,
it's under 100 feet, so,
I
do it now.
I think this one would probably be slightly more costly than our average, being that it's the main out. There would have to be substantial bypass pumping, but that bypass pumping wouldn't have to be, it'd be a very short run of bypass pumping.
So it's not necessarily prohibitive of keeping them from developing properties. What I'm hearing,
Not if they elect to
proceed.
spend the money to upgrade the one.
I imagine it's gonna be in the hundreds of thousands versus.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions before we go to second round of questions? Yes.
My interpretation, it sounds like they're close enough and they'll go ahead and get their project. Although I think I've heard you say they're gonna have to spend some money to do some upgrading. Okay, well, my question is, if they're fine, what do you anticipate will be the impact on anybody else that comes in down the road for that line? My assumption is if they're filling it up, that would mean anybody else that comes in, the answer is gonna be, sorry, no room at the end. Is that correct assumption?
I think it would really come down to how it was handled. You know, they can run a scenario with it being a different pipe size. And calculate what. Additional, capacity that the line would have once it's upgraded with their assumed. Flow projections.
Well, go ahead, you're still.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding. My sense as a layman is when you're top of the line and you're putting stuff in, you've got room. But as you go down towards the end, it starts filling up. So if they're filling up and down at the end, it seems like we're pretty much at the limit. So what's wrong with that assumption I'm making again?
Well, I'll use a gutter as an example because I just went through this at my house. A 4-inch standard gutter holds a certain amount of rainwater. But if you upgrade that to a 5-inch gutter, it holds almost double the capacity of what a 4-inch gutter can hold. So if it's 24-inch now, it goes up another pipe size, that would, we'd have to run the calculation to see what additional capacity is gained from it.
So if somebody else came in, they would probably be required to upgrade the capacity. If you increase the capacity, then you can do more.
I think that we would probably design it so it would be upgraded to a size that would accept larger capacity beyond just their additional capacity.
Now, is that a requirement for this project? Or you just thinking out loud, blue sky it? It doesn't make a difference, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, rather than replacing it several times over, we would kind of probably be the most thought out way to approach it.
Now, if it was upgraded or enhanced or whatever, who pays for that enhancement, them or us?
The developer. According to our development review and rules and regs, any work that would need to be done in order to accommodate their development would be paid for by the developer.
Now, would they pay for the entire enhancement, or are they gonna be in a situation where they pay a portion of it and then assume or ask that if somebody new comes along, that new person kind of back pays them for what they've already done, or some sort of allocation among developers or something like that?
I know that's something that the district wouldn't facilitate, that would be up to the developers involved. So for right now, that line that they wanna tie into for 12364, 533 Van Gordon is also wanting to tie in through that same. But they go that way, right? Yeah, that same stretch. So there's other interested parties out there that more than likely they could cost share or something of that nature.
How's that cost sharing before, or after the fact, in this case? I mean, if there's 2 or more projects going on at the same time, yeah, they can do some cost sharing. But if they go one at a time, the first one, does he pay it all? And they get reimbursed later, or?
That would be between them.
I believe any reimbursement of tap fees was removed from
Any credits?
the rules and regulations. That has been something that's been done in the past, where a developer pays for a section of pipe replacement and then is reimbursed as people tap onto that. But I believe that was removed from rules and regulations as well.
That's rebates, that's
Yes,
what a
rebates.
rebate is,
Yes, I remember that term.
yeah, so. That's what's going on. Director Martinez, we've got to go through some more questions, but I know your hand, thank you. Were you done?
Oh, good.
Did you have any questions, Director? No, I did. So was there a flow study for this property?
Yes.
Okay, so that ties that in.
Yeah, that's where the technical memo we got from Olson was where that calculation came into, where that started at like 0.69 DOD.
Right.
And their proposed demand that's added to capacity to the system takes it above the 0.7.
And the points that what I heard you say was Director Rickman's concern was that this may be maxing out capacity, but this is the point where the capacity is maxed out.
Correct.
So this is where we say, no, we are not developing unless you do this more capacity. And with this more capacity, we will be able to serve not only this development, but other development, because like your gutter analogy, is that we will have extra capacity.
Correct.
And that is why in the past, we have done rebate. So if somebody would put up the money for it all, we would rebate and we would act as the bank for that.
Yes.
That is an onerous duty for the district to take on, and we removed that possibility because it's just a lot of, and we ended up not finding that it could be used to the max, so we didn't end up, St. Anthony's didn't give a whole lot of rebates. So I think that was it. All right, so I wanted to know, then I have another question, but did you have a comment on that?
I wanted to add that the 0.7 D/D for this calculation is including the reserve capacity for the federal center property.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so, and you said that this ties into the 533.
533 would,
We're tying
yeah,
into
they would eventually make it to the same point here. And when the model is run, each segment along the way is calculated,
that,
so
right?
they're adding capacity all the way down the line, but none of the other segments are reaching that cutoff. So any new developments that would be proposed would also go through the same exercise, because their capacity would also add to the existing segments that currently aren't over capacity, so it's just gonna be a routine process. Because eventually, there's gonna be another segment down the line or upstream somewhere along the path that could be affected that way.
Yeah. Okay, Director Martinez, and that'll be the last round here, unless anybody else has a follow-up, because this will be 3 for you.
Correct if I'm wrong, but this is the over capacity analysis is due to the fact that this is a multifamily development, right? So if it was like businesses going in there, like a restaurants or continued ongoing businesses in there, we would not be seeing this.
Most likely, the EQRs that was reserved for it were 29 point something, so because it's a change of use, the system was designed at pretty much full build out in that area to accommodate what was in there. But now that their change of use is exceeding what was there by 400% or something like that, so that's the reason behind the added capacity. So if it would turn into like, I don't know, a dog park. And the city like would just had a drinking fountain there or something, the EQRs would actually go down, so the demand would be different.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at, it's because of the multifamily
Yeah.
development,
It's because
it's
of the-
exceeding the
Because of the
current capacity.
of the gallons per day that they.
So somebody was putting in, a restaurant in there, we would not have this issue.
Yeah.
Okay, any second round?
Well, yeah, actually, you raised an issue, if I heard you right. I thought you were saying something you're talking about this capacity, but it's not including whatever additional capacity might be coming off the Fed Center.
It is including all the capacity it is reserved in that federal center contract.
It's reserved, because obviously, we're coming up with, are we taking stuff off the Fed Center with this new deal? And it kind of looks like, well, we're not. But you're saying, I was interpreting your comment as saying, we are gonna be taking new load off the Fed Center.
We have that contract with the GSA where they have reserve capacity, a certain amount of gallons per day of reserve capacity on that line.
Today. But that'll be changing with these lawsuits.
If there are any changes to it, that would need to be updated.
But as of right now, we're running real world today scenarios for this developer, so. That's where they're at currently.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions on that? that particular property. So moving on in the development reviews, 533 Van Gordon Street would be next on the list. We've reached out to them, but we have not heard back. If they would like to proceed with their flow study, so we'll give them a little bit of time before we move on, which the next in line proposed development is that hotel on Bayard up there off Cedar and Van Gordon. Behind like the Radio Disney, next to the VA building.
Yeah.
We did get our sewer flow model data over to the modeling engineer, and we're going through that with them now, so we should have an answer on that basin as a whole. Whether it changes the demand for all the different pipe segments, good or bad, we'll know something, I would say, by the end of the month. So maybe have something to present on that in August.
Is that a yes, or how are we doing a deadline tracking?
I'm sorry?
How are we doing a deadline tracking? It sounds like that was kind of a guess. We hope maybe we'll get something.
Well, it's just working through all of the model scenarios, understanding where everything's going,
Sure.
so. Plus timing and availability, we will have something for the August meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's no other questions there. Infrastructure replacement projects are well underway. They're 1 and 2, they're each about 3 or 4 streets in so far, so we're proceeding well with those 2 contractors. Haven't run into any issues with shortage of staff from them, or customer complaints have been pretty minimal. I think our construction page that we have set up and requirements for advance notice have been pretty successful. We've had maybe 1 or 2 calls about people not understanding why they didn't have one.
Great.
And again, those schedules are available on the website. As soon as we know when the contractor wants to move over, we update the schedule for you.
That is very nice.
Well, that's it for me. Short, sweet.
Excellent. Glad the new contractor is working on it. So that's another one that you can call right away. Any questions? Okay.
Yeah.
On to director matters. We have discussion on the settlement agreement up next. I have questions. I am seeing that we do not have executive session on that. Okay. Did everybody have a chance to look it over? Do you have any questions? Yes, Director.
Yes, I have questions, a lot of questions. Can I proceed? Okay, so, it says here, or the district has concerns regarding environmental conditions at the development property and costs and complexities associated with providing water and sanitation sewer to the developer. That's us, right? Am I correct, Dylan? I'm posing this to you.
Yes, so just a moment, are you looking at the settlement agreement document?
Yeah,
Alright.
page 2.
Whereas the district has concerns regarding environmental conditions at the development property and the costs and complexities associated with providing water and sanitary sewer service to the development.
So we're the ones with the concerns, right?
Yes, the district, yes, is
Okay.
written down.
But it doesn't list the concerns, but you just generalizing that, right?
Correct.
Okay, the next paragraph, contingent upon completion of certain capital improvements by LLP approved by Lakewood City Council. Okay, so this is, gives, as I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're going to have to get approval by city council on any improvements related to concerns.
So this paragraph is a reference to a situation for them that's analogous to this, the development we were just talking about here. Lakewood has I don't know the specifics about Lakewood's capacity, but Lakewood has capacity issues that they are requiring the developer to fix before Lakewood will provide them service.
Okay,
So that is.
so they need city council's approval before this can go into effect.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, so there are.
well, not before the settlement agreement can go into effect, but before the development can be provided service by Lakewood.
So the settlement agreement can go into effect.
Yes.
We're then out of it.
We begin the process of getting out of it. It is it's a multi-month process to accomplish the exclusion
And at what point are we out of it?
by the end of the calendar year.
And does that incorporate this issue of having city council approve it?
Yes,
So we're in essence contingent upon city council approving it.
that's part of that multi-month.
So we're not out of it until city council approves it. Unless it exceeds that calendar year.
No, the expectation is that the whole process is going to be wrapped up. The whole process of the exclusion from Green Mountain is going to be concluded by the end of this calendar year. One of the things that will happen between now and then is seeking approval by Lakewood City Council for those improvements that the developer will be making.
Okay, down here where it says exclusion from district, it says concurrently with the execution of the agreement, the district shall provide an invoice to LLP for the deposit to pay the costs of the exclusion proceedings pursuant to blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? What costs are we talking about?
So there are a couple steps in the exclusion process. One of those steps is publication of notice in the paper of record, and that costs $100 probably or so. And then there are court filing costs that are probably in the $25 range. So the statutory costs are those specific hard money costs that are associated with essentially vendors like the court or the newspaper.
Okay, so we invoice them and they pay that.
Yes, and that'll be $250.
Okay, all right, the district agrees to cooperate in good faith with the exclusion process and to hold the required public hearings on the petition in accordance with blah, 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 blah. We're gonna have to hold a public hearing on this.
Yeah, so that's one of the procedural requirements for the exclusion process.
Okay, that, any costs we incur on that, is that passed along to them?
Yes, so that's the publication notice, you put it in the paper and that's what the deposit's for.
That's a public hearing here, to come in and express their opinion, like we did before, kind of.
Yeah, it's a public hearing, it's for or against only the issue of exclusion.
Okay. I'm trying to go along as fast as I can. Okay, within 5 business days of following effective date, LLP will seek dismissal of the action with prejudice. That is the removal of the lawsuit.
Yes.
And 5 days of when the signing of this.
So the effective date of exclusion is defined there in 3A1, page 2. It's the bottom of page 2. It's the date that I record the order of exclusion with the clerk and recorder for Jefferson County.
Okay, okay, on page 2, okay, the district and LP will promptly and judicially take all formal actions necessary to exclude the development from the district pursuant to blah, 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 such exclusion to be effected upon final action by the city of Lakewood and Consolidated Mutual Water Company. So that, if I read that right, they're saying this takes effect upon the final action of the city and Lakewood in their water provider, right?
Yeah,
That's what
so
we're talking about.
the three major steps here are you vote to exclude. Lakewood votes to include. You, on your behalf, file the exclusion. So this is the very final action, and that makes it the effective date. And so the reason that it's you exclude, they include is because, you can't forfeit property essentially. So they're going to transition from your service area into a new service area without any gaps in time.
All right. Release claims starts on page 3, and that whole section talks about releasing us and everybody under the sun, including anybody related to us. At least that's how I read it. Past future claims, demands, obligations, actions, cause of action at law and equity or otherwise, rights, damages, costs, attorney fees, liabilities, expenses, compensation of any kind, of any nature arising out of related LLP's application. What is this? This excludes us, it's just the clause that gives us a get out of jail free card.
This is you washing your hands of them and them washing their hands of you entirely, with one major exception, which is this agreement itself. So when you sign this agreement and begin taking the steps here, everything that has happened before is wiped clean. If in the future someone violates this agreement, that is not wiped clean. That's a future bad.
Somebody violates the agreement, like how, what kind of scenario would that be?
On your part, on our part, if you vote not to exclude them, for example, that would probably be a violation.
But yeah, but that comes after the fact that we've voted this in and signed it.
Right, yeah, so there's 10 things there's 5 things that you have to do and 5 things they have to do, as an example, under the settlement agreement. If you do 1, 2, 4, and 5, but you don't do 3, that's a breach of the agreement.
Right.
So that's something that's not waived here.
Says, okay, on page 5, release of service agreement rights upon effective date of exclusion of developer from the district LP, release its rights under the service agreement with the cooperation of the district in negotiation with the United States regarding release and real location of capacity reservations thereunder. What is this? What does that mean?
So that is what Sam was talking about, the capacity reservation. So under existing agreements with the General Service Administration and San Antonio.
So it's the government involved in this.
It is there. This piece of property that the developer owns has been promised some capacity in your system. As part of this agreement, they are letting that go. They are giving you back that capacity that they have been promised. However, the government, the United States government, also has a promise for some capacity there, and they're tied together. The developer got some, maybe all, of that capacity, and the government, the United States government, gave some, maybe all, of their reserved capacity to the developer. But it's not differentiated in any of the agreements. So what I have done, this actually is my contribution to the proposal. I've required them to give up all of the promises that they have and to help us get the United States government to give up the promises that they have too, if they can. You know, they don't have any more power over the federal government than we do, but it'll be helpful, I think, to have, another hand in that task.
Okay. On page 5, independent legal advice. The parties have received or had an opportunity to receive independent legal advice from the respective attorneys with regard to the terms and conditions of this agreement, as well as the ability to enter into this executing this agreement, and will fully informed as to its content. That's you?
That's for Green Mountain, that's me, and it's Bill O'Connell, who is litigation counsel.
Okay,
So those.
Bill, are we gonna talk to Bill about this?
He is not here, he wasn't asked to be here. You could.
Does this give us an opportunity if we're still not feeling warm and fuzzy to go ask him, but he'll get a second opinion, it's always good, you know.
You could, he participated in drafting this agreement, and when I spoke to him yesterday, he had no reservation about it whatsoever. But his role is in the litigation, and this completely resolves the litigation, so from his perspective, there's probably no possible downside here.
Okay. And necessary for the documents, that's just a clause there that we provide them with.
There's you provide them the petition for exclusion, it's a form document, you provide them. I provide the motion to the district court for the exclusion, and I file that. Similarly, they will provide the documents for the inclusion with likelihood.
If Bill is on this and you're on this, who takes lead on it?
On what? On the settlement agreement?
Yeah, between the two of you,
Like in making the things happen.
yeah.
Mostly me, because most of this is gonna be the exclusion process. He'll be handling the litigation side of it, so dismissal of the lawsuit and whatever negotiations need to happen to inform the court that we've resolved the matter.
Those are most of the questions I had on it.
I'm fully in favor of the exclusion and ending the lawsuit. But, I do have a number of reservations and concerns. Begin with legally, is there any particular reason why we couldn't do the exclusion by itself and do the settlement by itself? Do they have to go together, some sort of single action?
I don't think they are a single action. In this case, the settlement agreement is going to kick off the exclusion process, which will happen separately. But if they, I don't know, if they had submitted a petition for exclusion instead of proposing a settlement to litigation, you would have considered the exclusion. I think you would have ended up in this place anyway, because you would have required dismissal of the lawsuit as a condition of exclusion.
I hate to, beat the dead horse, but I obsess on things. This bit about originally they wanted us to be a vendor for them, transporting the water in, taking the sewer out. And I know I've asked you about that before, but I'm sure we get the same answer again. Will we be under any obligation, pressure, whatever, something I can't envision, that we would be providing them the water and or we would be moving their waste out? 'Cause right now, it's saying, the way I read it, is that Consolidated Mutual bring in the water, we're not involved. And City of Lakewood would take out the sewer, we're not involved. That's the way I read it. But is that absolutely so? Or am I missing something? They might switch on us or something like that.
Right, so originally in 2009, they asked you to serve them. That's same entity in the United States government asked you to serve them, and you agreed to it. And so in 2015, thereabouts, the Green Mountain included the property and took on an obligation to serve it formally. And when the developer purchased the property, they came to you and asked them to provide service, sanitary and water service directly to the property. As an alternative to that, we and they discussed some sort of wholesaler agreement where you would master meter the development and they would manage the water and sewer services on the property. That never went anywhere because of the lawsuit, they filed a lawsuit. And so this is, the agreement here is they are going to leave the district, forego any obligation by Green Mountain to serve them with either water or sanitary. And instead obligate City of Lakewood for sanitary and Consolidated Mutual for water. They will no longer be included in your service area or your boundaries. And you will have no obligation to provide them any sort of service. Period. Someday, they could ask you again. That's a conceptual possibility. Maybe, I don't know why that would ever happen, because they're going to be getting service from City of Lakewood and Consolidated Mutual, and you probably would have to say no, even if they came back to you, even if you wanted to, because you can't mix water, essentially. So, you know, in the whole world of infinite possibilities in the future, they might come back and ask. But there's no obligation after this process is completed for you to provide any services to them.
So it's the same answer you gave before, so I'm getting the same answer every time. All right, and then this indemnification. They've said that they won't be suing us, between the two of us will be fine. My concern is indemnification to the extent that if something happens with their project and the future owners or whatever are damaged and they're doing lawsuits and they're suing everybody they can find, can we get an indemnification from them, the developer, that we would not be in any way responsible, involved in any future lawsuits that they may get involved with on future contamination issues?
So this is maybe a niggling point, but there is no indemnification. There is a complete release. Indemnification is a little different. So maybe as an analogy, maybe to answer that, I'll give you an analogy. Once this is complete, once this has been accomplished and they're excluded and they're being served by Lakewood and Consolidated, it's essentially equivalent to some development in Bear Creek Water Sanitation District.
That's the way I look at it, but
So again, in the whole world of infinite possibilities, yes, you could be named in a lawsuit. You wouldn't have an exposure, really, because you haven't provided any service to them. You haven't facilitated any of the services there. And as of the date of this agreement, they have foregone any claims against you before the date of the agreement. And you've washed your hands of the property going forward, so. Anybody can get sued anytime by anybody. There is not a meritorious lawsuit by any future resident, proprietor, consumer, customer, or owner of this property against you once they're being served by City of Lakewood and Consolidated.
Well, taking my approach of being very conservative, I want suspenders as well as a belt. Would it be possible for them to throw in some language about if in this unforeseen possibility that there are lawsuits in the future and people are suing everybody agrees being on water won't be dragged into this. I mean, they can't guarantee anything, but at least from their perspective, it at least gives me a little bit of additional assurance.
Well, that is what the release does. They can't, like I said, they can't guarantee that anybody else won't do something. But they can guarantee that they won't. And so they are guaranteeing in the release that they will not ever pursue claims against you related to the development.
Since I'm not a lawyer, and I guess I don't fully understand the whole concept of indemnification. I hear what you're saying, they're not gonna sue us, but if somebody else is suing them and they're throwing everything in, including the kitchen sink, and naming everybody they can think of, including the water district and Dave Wickman, can they at least say that this, at least the developer is saying that the water district should not be involved and we're indemnifying them and they're gonna act as our shield and just, can I hear it once again? With additional reassurance?
Probably not. I don't think anyone who understood what that meant would ever agree to that. Because, like I said, anybody can get sued anytime by anybody, so they would be promising to shield you against unlimited potential futures, no matter how unlikely.
Would it look good to a court?
No.
Yeah.
It would not, it would make no sense to a court to see that. And they will never agree to it because it's impossible to implement that. And really doesn't help him.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
I'm sure
If we
it's an
need-
unsatisfying answer.
If we are going further down this, what I'm hearing is that you are asking for something. You are saying it's not going to help and it's not feasible to do.
Yes.
If you are not satisfied with that answer, your option at this point is to make a motion that we add that language in any way to the settlement. Do you propose such a motion?
There's no downside from me doing that, right? You'll say they'll ignore it. I suppose, but if I don't ask, can't get.
That's true.
So you can make a motion, we will do something else, and then we will move on from this topic.
Okay, all right, I would motion that we amend our agreement to include an indemnification against third-party lawsuits, or whatever the appropriate word would be.
Is there a second? Oh, motion dies. Anything else from you?
Well, if you're long concerned about a rush job, and we got this on Thursday, and I would like to run it by some other legal sources. So we'll be inclined to say, can we postpone this for a week or two? To see if I can get some additional input.
If you wanna have a special meeting, then or two, that's certainly in your problem.
Okay,
The agreement includes some deadlines. The real major deadline is August 31st, so that probably contemplates the possibility of one or maybe even two special meetings, so. The time is baked in there. You do need, my do you know what their publication schedule is? You have to get it in a week in advance.
Steve, was it before? Right?
But it's a week out. Yeah, so you have to get it a week and a half in.
Okay.
I can pull on the schedule.
We have,
So you need,
for the, what do we,
I was asking about the publication schedule for the exclusion hearing. So at a bare minimum, you need 11 days before. You need to have made a decision 11 days before August 31st. To get everything accomplished.
can we put a pin in that block for now and come back to it? Does anybody else have questions? I think we're directly down, Harinder. I have questions. Is there any? First, I'm glad to hear that you were, I did not know that you were working with a comment on this. I wonder what happened to him. Very good, excellent. Can LLP release the reservation to us? Does it revert to the government?
They can release theirs.
Okay,
One question, what that actually accomplishes,
yes, because,
because they own half of planning area too.
right,
The General Service, the United States still owns the other half,
right.
and the reservation is allocated to planning area two.
So if they give up their rights, the US government could still, because they're not going to. I think it's a stretch to say the government will release to us, release all their reserve capacity to us, because there's no reservation of capacity. Somebody taking that on at this time, maybe Lakewood, they have to negotiate those agreements.
Like if the GSA wanted to build something there, they need.
Yeah, well, if they wanna sell that property to somebody else.
You know, I'm not ready to say this is my answer.
Yeah.
But I think probably the GSA would take the position that they assign the entirety of the reservation capacity for planning area two. To LLP, and LLP is able to release the entirety of it to us.
Because I didn't think that they had, if they really divided up, I didn't think they had divided it up by the planning area, because there's still that southeast corner
Right.
that was tied into that, to all of that. So
Right.
that piece of land can be developed under this reservation. So,
Yeah, so there, until the GSA says one way or another, yeah, there's still. For modeling purposes and for planning purposes, I would say the entirety of that reservation should be allocated to that southeast parcel.
so what I'm concerned about is. This is, I don't remember the numbers, but this, say the reservation of capacity is 6,000 units. LLP for the Bend was taking 3,000 units, that's half. So if they give up their 3,000. Do we now have a 3,000 reservation for the southeast corner? Or could the government say, well, we still have 6,000. And now we've got, instead of 3,000 here and 3,000 there, we've got 3,000 here and 6,000 there for a total of 9,000 units on the old Fed Center. Because they take all that reserve and put it over there.
Well, there won't ever be more than 6.
Not if they got, but they could, if all 6 goes to the southeast corner.
Well, so what you said was there's 6.
Yeah,
The government gave 3 to LLP.
yes, but it's, they gave three to planning area, 2 LLP, but if they don't release for all of planning area 2, they could still possibly claim all 6 over the entirety of for down in that other area,
All 6.
all 6.
Yes, so I think the options are. The simple options are. Southeast quadrant. Of section planning area 2 has. All 6,000?
Yeah.
Has 3,000.
Yeah.
Or is it?
Right, depending what the government interpretation feels like today. Okay,
And I think. And I don't,
and we don't.
I don't,
I am concerned about us having, on the one hand. These are separate issues, but on the other hand, I'm concerned about. Having all of this development then shift over into that other corner, they still have the reservation of capacity. And now we are getting more development overall than we were originally, and it won't be us, it'll be Lakewood will develop 3, and then we'll develop 6 over there, but that's a total of 9. Or whatever, I know the numbers are not right, but in that federal center block, there will be an overall more development. Potentially.
yes, that is a potential outcome, not in terms of Green Mountain
Yeah,
infrastructure capacity.
Our
but
capacity.
In terms of the land, yes.
is there a way to have this contingent on, I mean, they're releasing their rights, but if them releasing their rights doesn't free up our capacity in any way, that's not gonna do it for me. I'm not happy with that. If they would release the 3,000 units, then that would help us on some of these other developments that we want to do. Then we can do that, but
Yeah.
if we have the 6,000 that we still have, and I don't know how long. And we won't know that forever, but I would rather, is there any way to make it contingent upon? We have to get that from the government. They will release that, at least those planning area units to us.
Well, that's what I was saying by they're not differentiating. Because there's not. The 3,000, as an example, is only coming from the developer's plans.
Right.
But. As far as the assignment and the reservation goes. They could have something for 6,000
Yes, and take it out.
and maybe, and. So they can't put, well, they could say we're specifically releasing. The maximum number of EQRs or gallons per day that they were planning. They could do that.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a good idea though, because that makes it more difficult for us to tell the GSA that we understood this, the assignment to be the entirety and the release to be the entirety. Right, so if we put in the agreement, LLP agrees to release 2,960 EQRs from the reserve capacity.
Right.
That gives so now it's 3,940 EQRs that the GSA can point to and say, no, we have those.
Right. So we're hoping that the GSA doesn't notice that they have a hole under this agreement, that they have released the rights to water with us through this whole other parcel of land on the southeast corner.
Yeah, the assignment says the GSA assigns their interest.
Yeah.
And I think that means all of it.
I think all of that agreement is void at this point, since they have been included, and I had argued that before. Now that this piece has been included, and that's, I think the whole thing is void, and we can go down that road a different way. I also want,
Can I ask a question?
yeah,
Josh, do you know if planning area 2, the southeast portion was ever included?
Yes, It was. Yeah, they have. In one of the exhibits. It was proposed as a GSA neighborhood retail development over there
Okay.
with a. Reservation of 42,000 gallons per day.
Is that allocated to planning area two?
Yes. That's that quadrant of planning area too. Yeah.
Wait, so they were differentiated?
Mhm. At least that's what I'm seeing here. See. Allocation over here. And then this quadrant that we're speaking to is at 42,000 gallons per day.
The one that's the one that they're going to put the heat pump in,
That's part of it.
which would, it's a lot of holes.
Yeah, you know, and that's another thing is they have a large geothermal project going on their property, so I don't know if that's gonna. They're gonna need to allocate that space for their system, so. And this is planning area 3, which is not part of the agreement, which.
Right.
So it's only that guy and.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So it looks like we
But
got.
the majority of it is tied up in. Where the LP is.
So perhaps we can perhaps delay and research this a little bit more, because that is maybe a sticking point. Give time to think through that. I have,
Well, before we leave that one.
Yeah.
This is confusing me even further. A bit about reserve capacity, I remember on other projects, it's like, okay, we've obligated to provide so much reserve capacity. That kind of puts it in mind, we have to do that. Now, my concern here is if somehow this reserve capacity gets misinterpreted to say that we will take also their sewer from this project into our lines, then it goes back to my concern that there's a pass-through that involves us. That would be my concern. Now, if it turns out that that's not an issue, that all of their product is going to Lakewood and it's off and gone, it's out of our world, that's fine for me. And if that's the case, then does that say that if there were other new projects in the future, not involving the 59 acres, but if there were projects on the Fed Center or entirely different, they could go against our allocation, our capacity, or whatever, because I don't have any problem with servicing the rest of the Fed Center. What I'm looking for, is there any way that they're getting around this routine, or somehow we take their sewer through our lines at any stage?
No, he's 58 acres. It is possible that you will be serving some other portion of federal center.
And I'm okay with that.
Because it's still part of your district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See that.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm clarifying. If we're serving the other parts of the Fed Center, they're not contaminated. So it's,
No,
well, anyway, my
Yeah.
focus right now is on 59 acres. I know I don't want to remove that crap.
the 58 acres is. Both, under the agreement, they are forgoing both your obligation to serve and your obligation to. Hold this space for them, so. They don't get to use that space. What happens to that space? It's kind of an open question,
Somebody else could use it.
or you could, maybe the federal government still gets to use it, or some other development gets to use it, or you get to call it open.
But the 59 acres will not be using it.
Right.
That's my question.
one more issue that came up. And I appreciate our district looking into this because I forgot we have outstanding bills that they have not paid. And this is another sticking point for me, which I know. So I would like advice as to, to catch up. Josh made us aware that the developer has not agreed to pay the legal bills that we incurred from researching this topic. So that is what, about $100,000? If we go ahead with that, with this settlement, we are foregoing the ability to collect that money.
Yes. Well, Josh, are there any outstanding engineering invoices?
No. They're, the only thing that has not been paid was the Hall and that hard.
Okay.
Well, that's a good question, 'cause I saw that bit about everybody pays their own legal bills, I was like, well, okay, that's the standard American practice, that everybody pays their own bills. But in this case, they're obligated to pay the bills that we incurred to research the project. And they're obligated to pay those.
So that's, so we're not in executive session here, so this is open session, but that's, more or less accurate.
Do we
The,
need an executive session for this? We adjourn?
well, we don't have one on the agenda, so we can't.
Okay.
So, your rules and regs say that you'll enter into a development agreement, including requirements for deposit and reimbursement agreements, and you never got to the point where you entered into that agreement. So they do, under normal development review processes, you are reimbursed by the developer for the vendor costs, the engineering analysis and the attorney fees and other things like that. Currently, as drafted, as negotiated, the settlement agreement does not include reimbursement payments.
Do you think that was delivered or is this oversight?
If it was, well, I'm sure they're not choosing to volunteer or to pay that money. So I don't think oversight would really be the way to describe it. I'm sure they're aware of the on the card invoices as well.
Yeah, Doug has sent them the invoices 3 or 4 times with no response. Which in the rules and regs, it technically says they may be required to put a deposit down. And once this evolved into what it evolved into, that's where we kind of put them on notice that moving forward, yes, we need to be requiring funds up front, which they did do for all of the engineering and everything.
I am inclined to be stubborn about this. And I know that is new to. Does anybody at this point? Director Bergman has already asked to give it a week. And I have to apologize because I did get, Dylan let us know that he's got a term agreement ready to be posted on the website so that there was public notice about this, and I never responded to that email. So there is something drafted and ready to go. We could do that and have a meeting in a week. You were already thinking about that. We are looking at researching, the reserve capacity thing. I have a couple questions that would probably be better in executive session regarding these legal costs. But I am at this point without that in here. I would not be in favor of the agreement at this point. And from my understanding, that would jeopardize this whole settlement agreement because that wasn't a term up front, because we didn't talk about it last month. So that is me being stubborn again. But you all do you want time to think about it? Do you want to hold another meeting to discuss any all of these things next week? In 2 weeks? Is this answering my question?
Well, it's a question too, what you said. How does this jeopardize this agreement? You said postponing could jeopardize it.
Well, I'm postponing for a week to have another meeting to think about it is not.
It's not.
Not. But if we would, same with your motion, if we would make any more material changes to the original terms, and I will let you say it better than me.
So for example, I agree, if you hold a special meeting next week to continue having discussion, I don't think that jeopardizes this.
With an executive session.
With an executive. If you say, go back to the developer and tell them you're not signing it unless they pay the 100,000. I think that's highly likely to be met with, well, then you don't have a deal. And so that's the thing that blows up the agreement, potentially. Because that's, so material terms, the term sheet has the 5 material terms here. One of them is not an exchange of money. So an exchange of money would be an additional term to be negotiated. So you're renegotiating the agreements.
And if I understand correctly, if I'm wrong, we'll get more in detailed information in an executive session related to this financially. So questions you can't answer now.
I don't know if I'm gonna have financial information for you, or analysis, but I'll have, you will be more free to ask me legal questions and I will be more free to answer them than I am. Yes, and it sounds like there are some questions that, presumably I wouldn't feel free to answer.
Since I have had a few days to think about this, I have alternative legal strategies I would like answers to. So I should have noticed that we didn't, I guess I just assumed and didn't check that we would have a executive session on this. So if it would be okay to wait, and have a special meeting on the 15th. I have no idea if I'm free that day, but can, does it make sense to anybody? Since there are a couple of things that we may discuss there. But we feel about a special meeting. You are able.
Would it be more appropriate to wait 2 weeks to give everybody plenty of time to get up to speed on this, get the information, think about it? I'm open to either, but
Can you tell me where in here are you seeing the part about nothing? I went to this attorney's fees and costs. Everybody agrees their own attorney's fees. Is that what we're talking about? Or is there somewhere else with this?
Well, this reimbursement obligation is not discussed in the settlement agreement. There, so it is just absent.
Those are like Dylan's cost of negotiating the settlement is.
Right, so the time, the time that I am spending right now, for example.
Yeah, well, that's what I expected.
Yeah, you.
I hadn't thought in terms of you know, what they already owed us. But again, that was kind of like, sort of like legal fees. But, yeah.
I think I hit on this earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, but concurrently, on some page 2 at the bottom, it talks about, invoices, with its executions agreement, the district shall provide an invoice to LP or the deposit to pay the costs of the exclusion proceedings pursuant to blah, 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 blah. That would not necessarily include, costs that Josh is talking about.
Right, yeah, so those, environmental alternative analysis of proposed development is not an exclusion proceeding.
Could that be something we can add in there or maybe expand on with them?
That's, yeah.
And not try to ruffle the feathers too much.
Well, I think going from $250 to $100,000 is gonna ruffle their feathers. No matter where we go. I mean, we could, that would need to be a separate provision in the agreement.
Not included with
Because
this.
you couldn't, yeah, I don't know what they would do if we gave them an invoice for $100,000, $100,000 and $250 for publication costs.
It'd be fun to see the reaction.
I'm just kind of wondering, is that clause is not all encompassing of that amount?
No. No. Yeah, I think, yeah,
Unless specifically worded that way.
right. And it would be,
From a legal standpoint, it would fly in court.
no. You guys don't have. You don't do inclusions or exclusions, so you don't actually have a policy for the amount of cost on that, but other districts I have, they do, it's like an $800 deposit, or $1,500 deposit that covers exclusions and inclusions.
And again, it's 100,000 that, we've billed them so far that they owe us. The
Yeah.
right number,
Like 106, I think.
well, it's not 100. Okay,
Would it be okay to delay this? The next, for 2 weeks is the 22nd. And it sounds like, I mean, just these 3 topics to talk about the bulk of the agreement you all read and had questions answered, so it's a limited time. Is 1 week enough? Only because I'm not sure my availability on the 22nd would be 2 weeks. If
I'm having a board meeting.
on the 22nd, so you can't do it either, all right, done. Can we,
Whatever.
15th?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I move to have a special meeting to continue this topic on July 15th. To include first an executive session and then a general discussion on the bench settlement. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Director Wendell, thank you. All in favor? Everyone unanimous approval, thank you.
Would you like me to ask Bill O'Connell to be present?
I'm sorry.
Would you like me to ask?
I would think, that would go a long way to, just, for a second, legal opinion. I think it would be beneficial. And since he helped draft this, it would be getting his mind state as to what we legally do the same.
I can ask him.
Did that cost us money?
Well, he's being paid by your rate.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So, not right.
I don't know what his specialty is. I guess I'm assuming that he would rely on me for much of this. I'm wondering if it would be an appropriate time, if you wanted a second opinion, to call back in Hart to review the conditions of the settlement. They are familiar with it. It will be another, and this, we will be paying for as part of
Yeah,
settlement.
you know, candidly, you're welcome to do that if you'd like, but both probably defer to me.
Okay.
because this is,
Special
this
district
is
business.
just an exclusion, it's just special district.
Okay. Good. Are there any other questions that we can research before next? I think that was the last one to go, so. Okay, we'll move on and do those questions next week. Thank you for everyone's good thoughts on that. And for being available. Next on the agenda, we have densification for Lakewood. Okay. I will just summarize, we have a problem with Lakewood, and Josh can jump in after me and expand. Because we have this with Jefferson County as well. Lakewood is changing their zoning code. So I had, as I said at the last meeting, I was talking to Josh and Sam, and Director Ardinger came in to learn a bit more about our fee structure and how we're gonna go moving forward. The tap fee legislation impacts us a little bit because they're encouraging ADUs. I forgot at that time about Lakewood pushing to densify everything. So we need to come up with a strategy and a capacity for how to handle unlimited use, capacity use everywhere in the district. It is not just somebody willing and able to build an ADU on their property. It is potentially, if Lakewood passes it, removing all occupancy limits everywhere in the city. So your single family housing is now multifamily housing. You can, the only constraint on it is how many people by building code it can have. Lakewood is estimating that will be an average of 20 people. They also have the capacity to change the structure into a designated multifamily unit with separate taps and apartments and all of that. Or change the house next to you into a retail business. They have expanded personal services, which is now like hairdressers can operate out of their homes. You can have any personal business, and I'm not sure, I think that was, I don't know, I don't know what all that is. There was a lot of talk about coffee shops being a personal business and massage, and I don't know.
House of prostitution.
The uses and limits on what is going into the housing is kind of quadrupling. If you have an average home of 4 people, well, it's quintupling, right, to 20 people. That won't be overnight. But that's we have to figure out what to do about that and where and if we have the capacity. What did I miss in that summary, John?
I did take a look at the Lakewood Together website, and they do also talk about residential use being utilized on any zoned area, even though it's not designated for that, so. Just trying to get caught up really on all that, you know, as far as when you spoke to the Jefferson County email I had sent out, they have very limited unincorporated Jefferson County in their district. It's really down by Bear Creek Golf Club. So there's some larger homes down there that would be affected by their comprehensive plan, but as far as Lakewood goes, they haven't reached out to us for their comprehensive plan, and I don't know what their timeline is, so Sam and I are gonna get together and go over this along with some of the other talking points you had,
Yeah.
on this.
I think that the
Extension.
comprehensive plan itself is scheduled to be voted on through July 28th. The zoning code first reading is now scheduled for August 11th, but they want to have this done in August. So second reading will be 14 days after the 11th. And they may or may not have a third reading, but it sounds like they are delaying. They have public discussion now outside of the third reading, so they will be done by August. Any thoughts? Is anybody else concerned about it?
Well, certainly, yeah, and Lakewood City Council remains are extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
There's no surprise there. Yeah, this is worth pursuing. And especially in view of capacity, overall capacity for the entire district, but.
Are you thinking in terms of we just giving our opinion and that they care? Or is it something that we could somehow have rules or affect? I guess what I'm thinking is, if we say we don't have water capacity to give you all these ADUs, then our hands are tied and your hands are tied. Or is it simply a matter, I don't like it? What do you think, or what can we do?
A couple of both. So glad you asked, I have a list. We have limited choices if this passes. I'm assuming it will pass. We cannot tell them to stop it based on capacity. We cannot tell, it will be the same thing as the developer now saying, they've got a parcel and they want to put in a house and we say we don't have the capacity. They will come up against our limits on that, and we will handle it the same as always. Am I saying anything wrong?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in with something?
Yeah.
Dylan has also given some thought to how we can handle this. I am thinking we need two things. We need a statement of our capacity for figuring out how we're gonna handle this. And perhaps that is drawing a map to show or sending that map out. And I didn't send you, but one of those presentations they had, if I can find it again, comes from the state legislature meeting on this. And they showed Lakewood and the original state bill that they're trying to accommodate is high transit corridors. So the state has, well, this is what we need to do. Now Lakewood's taking it a lot farther than that by removing acting throughout the city. But if we took a look at, I am thinking we need to go back to the amount of Denver water taps we have on our main trunk with that contract and see how many we have. And give that some kind of equivalency so that Lakewood knows. I'm thinking we had what, 3,000, 5,000 taps left on that original contract. It's not a lot.
Oh.
It's more than 3,000 because Denver, the vent was 3. So there's something, find that number and see if we can coordinate that somehow to give it, for instance. If all of these transit zones double the occupancy, we're done. We can't accommodate anybody else. Something. Find a scenario to how this will impact us and just take a look at different impacts. So that's capacity wise. After we hit that capacity, that's a big upsize to hit the main contract with Denver Water. So that's kind of a hard limit. If there is such a thing as a hard limit. We need to come up with a new number for average capacity if we are not going to be using single family. I think we use single family equivalent residential units. But we're gonna need, and somebody's gonna have a conversion rate who's already done that. I hear Portland thrown around all over the place. Vermont, Lakewood is modeling after Portland who has done this. Somebody will have that, so we'll see if you can find a conversion rate for what the new average usage would be. Can we, legal question, technical question. Are we able to, now that everybody is metered, establish base usage rates for a property and have some kind of change metric? We can institute on the sequel side if we are legally and technically allowed to look at their usage like that. Can we say, we noticed your usage has doubled and it's gone beyond, and therefore we'd like to inspect and see if you have changed your use from single family to multi-family. We're gonna need some enforcement action, is what I'm thinking.
Denver Water does examine usage to establish customized tiers. But there is some precedence for examining
Well, that's true.
usage.
And we also do for
Leakage.
the base rate.
You could adopt a policy. Like that, like identification of a change in quantity of use triggers a review of type of use.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are, I have other districts with similar policies.
I think it would be wise of us to get that ready. If you can work on that. Does anybody disagree? Do we need a formal motion for that? It wouldn't be adopted now, but we would have something ready if needed to look at a change of use policy.
And the idea there is, for example, single family residence currently uses 1,000 gallons a day. And then you identify that it's gone to 3,000 gallons a day, that triggers a review to determine whether it's been converted to a multifamily.
Right.
And should be charged at multifamily rates.
Yeah,
something like that.
something like that. And then I think there should be a penalty clause included in there if you have not notified us about that change of use, there will be a penalty, because I mean, it's gonna be hard for us to enforce. It's gonna be hard, but
I think there's a lot of circumstances where it would be enforceable. There would likely be an illegal tap made. There was an ADU built and secondary water. Considered an illegal tap.
so maybe we can model on that. Some of these uses are not like that, they are just considering, even if your secondary tap is in, if you have an ADU right now, they are saying you can have an ADU mother-in-law suite for one person, but put 20 people in there. So you would not know that unless you saw the usage way up. If you have an existing house, they may not modify it, but they already have existing STRs have gone up, but they are saying rent it out and put a family in each bedroom without an additional tap.
Yeah, we have the capability, and it's also part of our water loss audit that we performed, so
Okay.
we break it down to billed usage, unbilled usage, water loss, all the different variables that's part of the report.
Okay.
And just quickly looking in here, we do have piece I think is already covering this inside of the rules and regs that says no change in the customers, owners, or developers' equipment, service, or use of the property served shall be made without prior notice to and approval by the district, so.
Yeah, and like you're saying that, I mean, this is the same thing as covered by the property we were just talking about. So some of this is in here, but I'm thinking we need just something, a separate document to send out to the homeowners, because now we're gonna be working with homeowners who have no idea that
Mhm.
this will affect them, and instead of the developers who are more used to it. I think also we should include in there that this is a formal change of use. And since we are having capacity issues, every change of use should follow the same flow study, capacity study that we do for any other development. Um. And then you had said something about how the retail is gonna be an issue, but that needs to, and retail will be,
Yeah, that's more of a regulatory
right?
aspect. If they're gonna open up a salon or something where, you know, chemicals are, you know, a more of a commercial environment that there's
Yeah.
backup prevention.
So if you can put all of those things in a letter, these are in a new policy for consideration, that these are the things that we know will affect our district. And, you know, our customers as a result of Lakewood's zoning changes, be aware. You may need a special change of use retail thing, you may need a special capacity study to change the use of your property. You need permission, there will be penalties.
Or we're gonna, the excuse or another motivation for us is the fact that we're going to see expenses.
Yes.
We're going to be charged more for the sudden increase in usage, obviously. And that's gonna have, I'm sure the city council members, in between talking about how they feel good all day, have never considered costs in anything they ever propose, so
No.
I'm not sure why they would ever take that into consideration in this one, and people keep voting for them, so I'm sure we're gonna have to make it very clear that we're going to, that's great, I'm glad you brought that up.
So I think by putting it in and doing it this way with a policy that would. And if you can make reference to the cost. That we're not just pulling up, we do have capacity that costs something, and put this in. A new change of use permit or something. See what you think, and we can bring it up later if needed to vote on. Or if you can have it ready by the next meeting, something, then maybe this would be something that we've passed to city council to say, these are the ramifications. Our district is ready for the ramifications, this is what will happen. And what we will have to do as a result of the zoning code changes. Is it, I'm open to any other better ways of handling this.
Just thinking out loud, would it be inappropriate for us to just have like a mass mailing to everybody in the district to caution them that this is coming? And this is what it could possibly cost you and the district and the water and all of those things, maybe a preemptive strike, and enough people would be concerned that they complain to their council people.
I think maybe if we have that ready for, and put it in can we do it in the next newsletter? Billing. Just that,
Yeah,
they can post
something
that
like-
online at any time.
Well, nobody
No,
not very many people read that, but I mean, something like even a direct mailing, would it be worth our time and expense to do that? Say, here's what will happen.
it's an option. I'd rather keep to the electronic version to let people know, but
Okay,
if anybody else? That opinion?
and it would certainly catch council's attention. If people were
We
finding,
always catch council's attention.
Especially if we do it in August before the election.
Yeah, the vote will be in August here, so it would be a little bit of a juggle to get a mass mailing out.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, though. to inform the public, oh, by the way. We're just gonna be passing this on to you.
But we also have serious capacity issues and even beyond that, for me personally, conservation issues,
Yeah.
just a huge usage of water in this district and everywhere else.
Yeah, I thought Colorado was a conservation state until I met some city council members.
Anybody else have thoughts? Do you want to make a motion as to that? They can have, otherwise we'll just get it ready for looking at next.
You're asking
We
for a
can-
motion that we consider a mass mailing to each of our
Yeah.
customers? Yeah, I move that.
Okay.
I make the motion that we make our customers aware of the sign.
Yeah.
And there's,
With our current, fee structure, we might wanna have a discussion about revising the current fee structure and any changes we wanna see within that prior to that notification, because under our current fee structure, there's, could be limited impact on change of use like that, because we don't have any correlation from occupancy considered in our fees. One SFRE is tied to the meter size. It doesn't matter if that's a single family or multifamily. So we currently don't have structure in place to quantify some of those things.
so that was one of my asks. Can you get a? Cause we're gonna have to have that equivalency or conversion or something.
Thanks, George.
And so this would not be this, so this, again, this is a notification, not a concrete data at this point. This is just, from our point of view, just a notification that city council is looking at it and this will impact us somehow, some way. And,
Adverse.
yeah. So we will, I think it's gonna take a little while I think it's gonna take more time than we have. To get something together. I would like to see a draft by next month. I don't know if we can have it by next week in order to have mailing done by like August 11th, when they're doing first reading at this point. Yeah,
I second his motion.
I'm sorry, thank you, but Director Hardinger already seconded it, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion about getting a mailing together? This would, so we would have to have it, probably, what, in 2 weeks, have that fact sheet done to circulate, and then, ready to get the printed and sent out by the 1st of August, I think.
Just as a rough estimate, what would it cost? If we're like a postcard.
Been a couple of years since we've done postcards, but we can probably get a ballpark on that.
I think postcards are either like 50 cents each.
But I mean, the printing, the handling, the mailing. Are we looking at $25,000 or?
Josh,
I would say that or less.
You wanna do a phone mailer or do you wanna do? You got an idea, you're thinking over there, David.
Well, it's been a while since I've been campaigning, but everything's gotten more expensive. That's the big problem. It's like, back in the old days, we do a postcard, but now 50 cents a stamp.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it gets to be expensive.
Maybe we could also break it out as for people who like e-billing. Have an email go out to those customers versus the customers that still like the paper bill. Maybe break it out that way so it saves money.
Or do both. If it's inexpensive.
Well, a freebie is just put an article on the nextdoor.com. But of course, that's a small audience, but at least that's free.
That is.
We'll have a meeting next week. Can we defer, or do you want to we could take a vote on this, but I mean, an option is to see how far you get in drafting something and putting numbers together for,
Yeah,
or
for
I mean,
the,
for a postcard statement that says, changes are coming, we don't know what yet, but check on the city council
Well, for the mailing part, I can have something ready for
next week.
Just to give you an idea of.
We
cost
have
and-
any regular mailings coming up?
No, because we bill every 2 months, half of the district would get it. And then the other half, well, we just did meter reading, so there isn't billing coming up. But that would only reach a small portion of the district.
When you say that you're gonna have the mailing ready, what does that mean?
We'll have like some sort of a notification to the customers, and then I can break it out. What it would cost to physically mail it to everybody versus physically mailing to the customers that like a physical bill versus emails for the e-billing customers.
Then we have that information by the next meeting in a week, and we can decide from there whether to move forward.
You can, or alternatively, just so that we don't get bogged down by this.
Yeah.
An alternative would be to say, if all you're doing is saying, making a statement, Josh can handle the statement and we can say if it's, if the spending on this is less than 25,000, go ahead, and otherwise bring it to, put it on the
Oh.
agenda next week.
Okay,
The only thing is, I don't think I personally could come up with a statement that wouldn't scare everybody. We need a.
right.
We need a wordsmith to make it reasonable and.
Well, Dylan can always give us advice on that too, because he's the expert.
Would you like to have Josh run it by you first? the
That would
statement?
be helpful.
Or do
I
you,
need to ask Dylan though, have you seen such a thing? Kind of a preemptive strike mailing all of the customers in anticipation of a vote? Take that as a no.
I cannot think.
Would you discourage us from doing such a thing?
Well, I was thinking about, there's a process for taking a position of advocacy on electoral issues.
Okay.
But that's,
Yeah.
you adopt a resolution. But that's not for this kind of an election. Well, I mean, this isn't an election, so it doesn't come into play there. So if it were, for example, a Jefferson County ballot measure on the November ballot, you would not be allowed to spend district funds to do this sort of thing.
No,
But a Lincoln City Council decision for adoption of a policy, I don't think that there's any campaign finance issues there.
oh,
I don't think so.
see,
Does everybody generally feel it would have some effect? My feeling is that there would be some of our customers would respond and be upset and concerned.
right,
But the main thing is it would certainly make it to each council member. Every council person would know there's concerns. And my hope would be that it would, sway them to vote otherwise.
So the motion on the table is to
Complex,
have a physical mailer.
right,
That's the motion.
postcard, quick and
Postcard.
easy to read.
Um. That John. I'm going on here. Do you want to add to the motion to have Josh be drafting a statement? And you can work with, you will at least approve it? Is that all right?
That's okay
That
with
it
you,
just goes
Josh,
to-
does that work for you?
Okay, and if spending is less than 25,000, it's okay to do, and if not, then bring it to the next meeting next week. Good, covered?
One thing I might add, let's imagine maybe it was $27,000. If we could cut out part of the mailing and include it electronically to save $2,000 or $3,000.
that was what I was gonna say, I don't mean to do committee work at this moment, but, public service, when it wants to inform me of something, it usually sends me either an email
Yeah,
and a phone message, both, I get both. But I don't know if you wanted to go that route, cause we can do that. We have phone numbers and we have, their, emails.
We can send out an email to everybody, we can do it at any time. So,
Okay,
But figure that out. I mean, I'm not saying do that, I'm saying offering a possibility that. And first of all, yeah, we're looking at from a fiduciary point of view, we're looking at an inflationary trend in our water service to our customers because of the neighbor wants to put everybody. Anyway, we're trying to figure out, you'll figure out. Dylan will probably look at it too.
but you know, in the note, I'd like to keep it easy to read, a quick read, very clear. But I would have concerns about, you know, increased water usage throughout the entire district. Our concerns about conservation.
Yeah.
And maybe we could throw in a couple of items about, you know, increased density. Yeah, let's see. All right, well, I'm good with all of that.
Thanks.
Good with all of that?
Saying that.
okay. All in favor?
Right.
That's everybody but me, and I'm sorry, I will still, be no great idea, I just, so motion passes. Thank you very much for taking the lead on this, and, any questions that come up, I'm sure you can handle, appreciate it, our residents will appreciate it. Great. And then in the meantime, that's the resident notification, and then the secondary thing is the policy that still needs to be developed from there. And I didn't write, all this down, that was the beginning part of the conversation, you can go back and review this conversation if you need notes, so I'm not gonna send you an email recapping.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on this?
Just to note that as part of the process, you do need 30 days notice before making any changes to rates and fees.
Okay,
So,
and this, I think that any changes will come up. They're not gonna pass this now, so we have to, I mean, it won't be till August, so any actual changes we can incorporate into the budget season.
yeah, and including the changes to the tiering or EQR analysis or things like that, I think it's probably going to be a 30-day notice requirement.
We don't have changes as yet, we just know that they are coming, so trying to get ahead of it. Other questions? Good. That's all we got. I don't see any general legal matters.
A couple, yeah, so by the end of July, you need to inform Jefferson County whether you're going to participate in their consolidated or coordinated election process. I see no reason that you're going to have Tabor vote in November.
I've already submitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no need to do that.
Well, are we participating? What? Okay, I didn't think so.
So no Green Mountain election matters on the November ballot. We talked about Fed Center and we talked about Jeffco water supply matter and the election. As an update on the Timmons lawsuit, generally, we filed a motion for summary judgment on partial summary judgment, and I have that to send out to all of you by email. I'll send that out tomorrow, along with some other litigation feelings. At the end of the month, there will be renewed depositions. They have subpoenaed former directors Baker and Plotkin to be deposed, and they are going to be deposing
This is all Tim's case.
Director Morgan, and a representative of the district, which we're waiting on, the specific topics for that deposition. It'll probably be Director Morgan who does that too. It'll be one deposition on two items, but they may seek to depose Josh too, but they haven't asked yet. That case is set for trial in September, so ideally we'll get some orders before then on the motion for summary judgment, and maybe we'll trim up the case or final resolution. Other litigation matters. The district is the plaintiff in a malpractice lawsuit against its former general counsel, Jennifer Ivey, and I Snuggle Cedar Folk. And the basis of that lawsuit was that her advice to the board at the time to enter into the Big Sky IGA was constituted malpractice because of all of these flaws in the Big Sky IGA. That case is active. It's been stayed, it's been on hold for 5 years or so while the Big Sky case wound its way through. And more or less, you're now at a point where you need to decide what you're going to do with that case. You don't have to decide tonight, but the options are, you can pursue it on some theory that there was malpractice. You can dismiss it. You can engage in some sort of settlement discussions. You can hire another attorney to prosecute that case or to give you advice on it. I'm the attorney of record in it because I'm monitoring it, and I've been providing status reports to the court for the past 3 years saying there's nothing going on. Or you can do nothing and you can wait for defense counsel to do something. So those are sort of the general options. I'd like direction on that within the next month or so. So maybe at the August meeting at the latest. And if you'd like, we can bring the executive session on to have further discussion, or I can give you my, sort of deeper analysis and recommendations.
I wonder if we could add that to next week's meeting for executive session.
I could be prepared to talk about it next week.
That sounds good to me.
And I have just sort of a tiny update on the ravine matter. John has prepared what I believe is a final draft of a complaint and has circulated that at least to Director Morgan and Josh for review. I don't know if he sent it to the board entirely.
I don't know if the whole complaint was discussed in the public session.
Well, I have, my understanding is that we have direction to proceed with that. So I have a conversation scheduled tomorrow with Lakewood City Attorney on that project generally. And depending on how that conversation goes, I'm probably going to inform them that that's the next one. I think we're at the technical terms shared up top.
Thanks.
If we are able to say that, because I think we still have some lingering obligations.
Well, there's no interruption. I just got an email and probably want to share. This is Lou Miller, and she says, why not include the letter you were discussing with the bills being sent to customers? Money is already being spent to cover that cost.
We did kind of cover that a little bit.
Not include the letter, with the bills, yes, because it will only reach half of the customers right now. But we can, yeah, okay, but that's. Sure you can.
Thank you, Ludmilla. It's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks, Ludmilla.
Yeah.
So as far as the project generally, Josh can correct me or fill in the details here, but we're waiting on surveying work for the reroute of the ravine line. That's where that is, both with permitting and with actual on the ground work. And few weeks, don't have a specific timeline on receipt of the surveying work product.
Yeah, it's supposed to be done this week.
Okay.
Alan Leak with Respect reached out to the surveyors. And was it was not, we didn't receive a call back in time for tonight's meeting, but they've done the paperwork end of it. Now they're just doing the actual physical surveying. So
I guess I thought we had done all the physical surveying.
not for the realignment, because we did surveying, I think King Surveying did some work, but
Yeah.
that identified that the line wasn't actually in the.
Yeah, so you have the as-built survey
Yeah,
and
Okay,
so they're gonna center all the 30-foot wide easements on the existing infrastructure and the new dedication for the proposed reroute.
so as far as Lakewood is concerned, they have been waiting for us to get all of this information for a little while.
Yep.
So I don't know where that leaves us.
well, their last release was a couple months ago, they said we'd still go for this agreement and
Right.
the board declined that and I told them that. And so it's been lingering.
Yeah, it's been in our court and we haven't pursued anything.
Right.
So, and I don't know,
Other than the survey.
which just started and it's not done, so the Lakewood is not waiting for us on anything. I mean, Lakewood is waiting for us,
Yeah.
I know, we are not waiting for them, so I don't know.
Yeah, outside of the surveying, they have some small comments on,
Yeah,
just arbitrary things on the plans that don't affect the design.
very good. Anything else?
Well, the appeal period has passed for the Big Sky litigation. June 30th was time there, so
Good point, have we heard from them?
I have not.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, I imagine it's coming. So that's all for general legal.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have new business? I have new business. I would like to see if there is any interest in taking a statement to Denver Water on limiting the fluoride in the water. Denver Water is still adding fluoride to the water, and I have not heard that we were waiting to see if they would take a position after all of the official data came out to say that that is no longer considered, that there are health effects from that. They have not done anything, as far as I know. So I would like to send them a letter from Green Mountain to say, please stop adding fluoride to the water beyond what's naturally occurring. Yes, recommend that.
So you and I have discussed this previously, and I'm in favor of this. I see no reason to add fluoride to water anywhere, but as you just alluded to briefly, there is a small amount of fluoride that naturally occurs. When that level increases, Denver stops adding fluoride. So apparently they monitor it, the natural level drops and they add more. So I think our point or the thrust of our letter is, don't ever add fluoride under any circumstances.
Let the customer decide what they're gonna do with their fluoride, if they can go out and get their own.
Yeah,
Or their dentist can tell them how to do it.
You know, there are some very negative health effects that.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the main thing. Apparently it's not healthy in the secular long run.
Right,
It takes a toll.
right.
I'm in favor of that. I don't know if you want to make a motion or.
Yes, I will make a motion that I would like Josh to provide a statement for us to send to Denver Water. If you can do that, just something brief, and then,
Nice.
yeah, sorry.
How frequently do the distributors meet?
I think it's quarterly.
Is that something that's come up at all of them?
Mhm.
Just thought there might be some efficacy in getting a joint statement among.
I know there's Consolidated Mutual does not. add fluoride to their water, so.
Does, are there recommendations say going federally? And so we could just use that as an excuse for just trying to be in compliance.
Yeah, I think with a federal MCL level, which is the maximum containment level, I think it's 4.0 milligrams per liter, and Denver's at, I think they're right around 0.7 from their 2024.
When there is 0 in front of it, 0.007. I thought the
It's
concentration,
0.7.
it is 0.7.
So
That's a
less
lot
than
of,
1 part per million.
oh, per million, okay. Sorry, I thought there was more zeros and there were.
And I guess I'm gonna retract my motion because it's not really. I don't want the board to move forward on it at this point, since I'm just bringing it up. So, but if you could put something together and bring it up in August, then, and include it in the board packet, if we can have time to think about it.
Like kind of a fact sheet / Q&A type of thing, or?
No, like a letter to,
Okay.
the letter to Denver Water. Just to say, for these reasons, we would like to, and that'll give, we can kind of prove it, that's not the point is that we would, have time to think about this idea, since I'm just throwing it at people, and then we can approve the letter to go as a motion pass. No. If you have ideas and things to include, please send it to Josh, and then we can vote on that next time. That's okay?
Sounds
Is
good.
that okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, nobody had anything else? Thank you, I think,
I did have one question.
yes.
The vacant secretary position, would it be unusual on a board like this to have somebody hold 2 positions? So just thinking out loud, vice president / secretary.
I don't know if your bylaws speak to a requirement that an office be held by only one director. But the secretary position is typically not, I was gonna say essential, doesn't necessarily need to be a director. So I think probably you could combine positions. But right now, I would say that Centennial Consulting Group is fulfilling the primary role of the secretary position. I take arguments.
But if you were willing to take it on, I would vote for
I
that.
just like the idea that if somebody goes to the website or has any questions for the district, that we actually have a secretary. And I'd be willing to assume that position after thinking about it for 3.5 more weeks.
Okay. Think about
But
it.
if somebody else wanted to take that position, that's fine. But I just don't like the idea of it being vacant. I know it doesn't mean much, but
I could have looked it up.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Yeah.
I think that would be wonderful. For next time.
maybe you make it an agenda item.
Can you make that an agenda item, so I don't forget?
Yes,
Okay, I
filling
think-
the secretary position.
yes. I think this has gone very well. I appreciate everybody's patience and hand raising. And for whatever reason, we got to hear more from Director Whitman this month, so that was a bonus. I don't know why. You were shy in breaking into the conversation beforehand, maybe? I don't know. So thank you, and it saved me from making other drastic measures like recessing meetings and or going. So I appreciate it. We will see everybody for a special meeting next week. And we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:46.